Hello, everybody. It is lovely to see you all. All right. Well, tonight we are going to be starting Pride and Prejudice. I honestly had a different plan for this stream, but that plan went awry, so we're doing this. So I hope you guys are ready for some good times. I know absolutely nothing about this book. I have never watched any of the movies. I have never read this book before. I have never read, spin-offs or spoofs or anything. I know nothing about it. So hopefully you guys are going to get some genuine grade A reactions from me. And that is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be reading and I will pause to react and make jokes and stuff like that, and hopefully it'll be a good time. Currently, I also know nothing about Jane Austen either. I don't know how I am going to feel about this book. As I think a lot of you are aware, I am more into the monsters. I like Frankenstein and stuff like that, and so I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this. I don't know how I'm gonna react, but that's what we're gonna find out together today. Today we're reading Pride and Prejudice, what? By Jane Austen? Who? Yep, exactly. Yeah, all I know is there's Mr. Darcy, and there's a main character. I do not remember what the main character's name is. Hopefully we'll learn that quickly. And they love each other, but one of them has too much pride, and one of them has too much prejudice, and they, I think it takes the whole book for them to admit that they're in love with each other. The monsters in this is societal norms and misunderstanding. Amazing. The way that was phrased was like, maybe the monsters were the societal norms we made along the way. And I kind of love that. I bought this book at Barnes & Noble this very week, because I like the cover with presumably the manor. I don't know if the birds are just for fun or if they mean something, but again, we're gonna find out. So, let's do this. Volume 1. Let us begin with Chapter 1. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighborhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of someone or other of their daughters. That is pretty funny. I do like that. It's like, that one, he's mine. He's rich and he needs a wife. That wife is me. I do think it's kind of funny though, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife. And I bet that this line is quoted everywhere as yes, this is an amazing first line to a classic book. But I'm just sitting here is that true, my friends? I'm sure it was true at the time that this was written, but it's what if he's just a strong, independent man who don't need no lady, you know? Is that universally acknowledged? I don't know. Yeah, Green said top tier opening line, so Green likes it. Yeah, she said dibs, gotta respect it, exactly. My dear Mr. Bennet, said his lady to him one day, have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last? Mr. Bennet replied that he had not. But it is, returned she. For Mrs. Long has just been here, and she told me all about it. Mr. Bennet made no answer. Do not you want to know who has taken it? Cried his wife impatiently. You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it. This was invitation enough. Why, my dear, you must know. Mrs. Long says that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, that he came down on Monday in a chaise. Is that how you say that? Chaise. In a chaise, and for to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately that he is to take possession before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week. Michaelmas? Is that Christmas? I've never heard of this. I need to look this up. I love how dictionary.com says chiefly British. This isn't just British, it's chiefly British. A festival celebrated on September 29th in honor of the Archangel Michael. How have I never known that this was a thing? I didn't know that people celebrated angels. That's interesting. Chaise is French for chair, pronounced chaise. Chaise. Interesting. Yeah, I guess I could look that up too while I'm looking stuff up. Well, I get sofas. Yeah, pronunciation, thank you.
Chaise.
Okay, chaise. A light open carriage, usually with a hood, especially a one-horse, two-wheeled carriage for two people. That's probably what it is. Let's go back. Oh yeah, and the other thing I was going to say is that I can already tell, so hearing the name Bennet, I do think that these are the parents of the main lady. And I can already tell that they're going to be a fun dynamic. That she's like, oh my goodness, did you hear the local gossip, dear husband? And he's like, uh-huh. And then what was it that he said? It was something like, you're gonna tell me anyways, basically. Oh yeah, you want to tell me, and I have no objection of hearing it, was the situation. I think I'm gonna make the book smaller. There we go. That way the chat is not covering it. I mean, at the bottom is covering it a little, but I think this is gonna be a little easier to work with. Okay. Let's get back to the book. I'll read that little part again. Why, my dear, you must know, Mrs. Long says, that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, that he came down on Monday in a chaise and four to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately that he is to take possession before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week. What is his name? Bingley. Is he married or single? No, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our young girls. How so? How can it affect them? My dear Mr. Bennet, replied his wife, how can it be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of his marrying one of them. Is that his design in settling here? Design? Nonsense! How can you talk so? It is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as he comes. I see no occasion for that. You and the girls may go, or you may send them by themselves, which perhaps will be still better. For, as you are as handsome as any of them, Mr. Bingley might like you the best of the party. My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty. That's an interesting phrase. Give over thinking. It's interesting that I kind of forgot that handsome could be used for ladies in the past. I like that. That's kind of neat. Assuming I got that right and that was Mr. Bennet speaking. And I do love okay, he's rich, he's single. What does that have to do with my daughters? I don't know if they're setting up Mr. Bennet to be a little thick, but it's cute. And then, he may fall in love with one of them, as if, he just might trip and then fall in love with one of my daughters. It's totally not going to be a perfectly orchestrated plan by me. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, man, I hate it when I trip and fall in love with someone as a result. Exactly. I mean, yeah, that's how it works. You watched anime, I assume you mean the perfectly orchestrated plan part. Totally. Yes, flirting with his wife. Good example, totally. It can still be used for ladies. It can, but I don't really hear it just in the vernacular. It's usually used for older ladies in the modern day. Fair enough. It's a shame I can't stay for much longer because this riffing on the Britishness and old-fashionedness of the novel makes this far more enjoyable than I imagined me reading a romance novel of my own could ever be. Oh, that makes me so happy, Eddie. I'm so happy to hear that. Oh yeah, and I was gonna say, I think this is a good example of, like, because I'm sitting here wondering, hey, how many daughters do they have? Because, like I said, I know nothing. And so I think this is a great, pretty natural way to bring up, like, hey, I've had 5 daughters. I'm not as pretty as I used to be. I will admit that. I think that's a great little writing tip of, like, bringing up one of those details that might seem like an as-you-know detail. Because this is something that someone could absolutely say in real life. Yeah. Mrs. Bennet is 100% aware of the grind, and 4,000 to 5,000 a year at that time was no joke. Oh yeah, we might need to look that up. Or I guess one of you could, and I could look back at the chat later and see. Give 2 more zeros to give a rough estimate. Oh yeah, I see that now. My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty. In such cases, a woman has not often much beauty to think of. But, my dear, you must indeed go and see Mr. Bingley when he comes into the neighborhood. It is more than I engage for, I assure you. I'm curious what that means. It's like, it's more than I want to do, but I'll do it for you. That's what I'm guessing he means. And it's also kind of cute that he, well, it's both mean and cute at the same time that she's like, you know, when you have 5 daughters, you're not the same spring chicken anymore. And he's like, most people in your position, they ain't pretty at all, but you are, my lady. You are pretty. Consider your daughters. Only think what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go, merely on that account. For, in general, you know they visit no newcomers. Indeed, you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him if you do not. Oh, okay, so we're getting a little insight into, like, the man of the house has to go visit him because the ladies can't. Which also makes it cute that Mr. Bennet is like, yeah, you guys can go on your own. And she's like, bro, we can't. Like, you gotta go say hi first. That's how this works. We live in a patriarchy. Did you forget that? And I think she's also saying, like, hey, Sir William and Lady Lucas, they're gonna snatch him up. You need to go over there and ingratiate yourself to him. You are over-scrupulous, surely. I dare say Mr. Bingley will be very glad to see you. I will send a few lines by you to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls, though I must throw in a good word for my little Lizzie. That's our girl. It's Elizabeth. Remember that now. I love I love chooses. Delightful. Like, it's so funny because it's not everywhere. It's not like every word, but it's just like dum-tee-dum, normal English, chooses. Oh yeah, like, I give my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls. It's like, yeah, you go over there, I consent, like, whoever he wants to marry, he can marry, it's cool, you know? Yeah, totally. Aaron says, not sure if I'm jealous or feel bad for this guy that he hasn't even showed up yet and everyone is fighting over him. Totally. Totally. I mean, I guess it goes back to the first line where it's just like, well, here's a rich man. He's in town. You know what that means. What does that mean? He needs a wife. You know?
Excuse me. I am maidenless. I am
straight.
I have
Money.
I'm new in town. You're gonna close with new in town? That is not the most dramatic thing that you just said. You had me at
Money.
So everyone's like, chop, get on the wife program. I don't know. Snatch him up, everybody. All right. Though I must throw in a good word for my little Lizzie. I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a bit better than the others, and I'm sure she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half so good-humoured as Lydia. But you are always giving her the preference. And they have none of them much to recommend them. What a thing to say about your own daughters! It's like, oh, like, I know that you favor Lizzie, but, like, your other daughters are great, too. And he's like, they're really not, though. Dang, son. Okay, they have none of them much to recommend them, replied he. They're all silly and ignorant like other girls, but Lizzie has something more of quickness than her sisters. Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion on my poor nerves. That's a great phrase. You have no compassion on my poor nerves. I love that. You mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. That's even better. I love that. I have a high respect for your nerves. They're my old friends. Why does this keep getting cuter? I've heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least. Oh, that's amazing. I'll reread that because I was laughing through the whole thing. You mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They're my old friends. I've heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least. You do not know what I suffer. But I hope you'll get over it, and live to see many young men of 4,000 a year come into the neighborhood. It will be no use to us, if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them. Depend on it, my dear, that when there are 20, I will visit them all. Nice. Oh. Depend on, my dear, for when there are 20, I will visit them all. Mr. Bennet was so odd a mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humour, reserve, and caprice, that the experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. Her mind was less difficult to develop. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, and uncertain temper. When she was discontented, she fancied herself nervous. The business of her life was to get her daughters married. Its solace was visiting and news. Interesting. So 23 years, does that mean 23? What does that mean? 23, okay. Oh, 23 years of marriage. Okay, so that makes a little more sense. Translation, they're basic. The other daughters, yeah. Oh, well, my dear wife, my other daughters, they're basic. Amazing. And he's just trying to streamline his afternoon. If he has to go out, he's gonna mention the one he thinks he can sell and get home before football. Yep, totally. Totally. I do think that, going back to the whole thing of, like, mentioning stuff the readers want to know, I do think that we got to know a little bit about, like, oh, okay, so Jane is the pretty one, so Jane is more pretty than Elizabeth, and Lydia is good-humored. I don't know if that means that she's, like, cheerful, or if that means she's healthy. Yeah, to be blunt, my dear, she's mid AF. Totally. Well, hello, dear viewer. You have reached the end of the video. So this is but a smaller part of a much larger video. A lot of my readings of classical literature were done in the form of a live stream, and I decided to go over those live streams and edit the videos into smaller, more digestible one-chapter videos. So if you would like to keep watching more of this edited content, then there should be a playlist on screen somewhere. I might put a little card for the next chapter. If you would like to watch the full live stream, then that should also be in a card right now and or in the description. So thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, I would appreciate even more if you would give the video a like, if you would comment on it, if you would subscribe to my channel overall, maybe even ring that little bell. But Any support that you can give me and my channel is deeply appreciated. I'd love to know in the comments what you liked about the video, what you thought was funniest about it, what was your favorite joke from it. This was originally streamed at A Moth in the Archive on Twitch. I stream there every Saturday for the writing group. We have a prompt every week and write 350-word microfiction for it. I read some of the stories from the community live on Twitch on Saturday, so you can check that out. And then, of course, I also do reading content like this over there. If you like my reaction content, I also have a reaction channel where I react to like movies and TV shows. That is called A Moth in the Theater, so go check that out. If you would like to see me play and or react to video games, then A Moth in the Arcade is the place for you. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you watch some more. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. So, I have a Yeti right here next to me. So, I have a Yeti right here next to me. I will zoom in a second. Don't you worry. Alright, volume 1. Okay. Doodly-doo. Oh, that's zooming out. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, part of the reason I mentioned the reading light is because my shirt looks purple, but it's not. It's black. This is the color that it is. The orange light just makes it look wildly purple, which is very funny to me. Eddie, you officially got your first spot trying to sell crap. I think that officially makes you a streamer. Amazing.